Welcome back to the EPA 608 training series. In this lesson, we'll review important concepts about refrigerant recovery procedures, system evacuation, equipment requirements, and safe handling practices for refrigeration systems. Let's begin. Question 1. What should be done before transferring refrigerant into an empty recovery cylinder? A. The cylinder should be evacuated to avoid mixing air with the recovered refrigerant. B. The refrigerant should be chilled. C. The refrigerant should be mixed. D. The cylinder should be heated. The correct answer is A. The cylinder should be evacuated to avoid mixing air with the recovered refrigerant. Explanation. Before transferring refrigerant to an empty cylinder, it must be evacuated to remove air and moisture. This prevents contamination of the recovered refrigerant with non-condensable gases like air, which can cause pressure buildup, inefficient system operation, or damage to equipment if reused. Tip: label the evacuated cylinder clearly with the type of refrigerant to avoid future mix-ups. Question 2. What should be done before transferring refrigerant into an empty recovery cylinder? A. Compressor suction valve. B. Liquid line. C. Compressor discharge valve. D. Top of the condenser. The correct answer is B. Liquid line. Explanation. Before transferring refrigerant to an empty cylinder, it must be evacuated to remove air and moisture. This prevents contamination of the recovered refrigerant with non-condensable gases like air, which can cause pressure buildup, inefficient system operation, or damage to equipment if reused. Tip: label the evacuated cylinder clearly with the type of refrigerant to avoid future mix-ups. Question 3. In which situation is it acceptable to evacuate a system only to atmospheric pressure? A. The repair is major. B. The appliance is being disposed. C. Leaks in the appliance make evacuation to the prescribed level unattainable. D. The repair is followed by an evacuation of the appliance to the environment. The correct answer is C. Leaks in the appliance make evacuation to the prescribed level unattainable. Explanation. If a system has significant leaks, achieving the required deep vacuum level during evacuation might not be possible. In this case, the EPA allows evacuation only to atmospheric pressure to minimize refrigerant emissions, since further evacuation would be ineffective and potentially wasteful. Tip: always attempt proper evacuation first. Only settle for atmospheric pressure if confirmed leaks prevent deeper vacuum levels. Question 4. What is the minimum vacuum level that a vacuum pump should be able to achieve when evacuating a refrigeration system? A. 10 millimeters of mercury. B. 1,000 microns. C. 20 millimeters of mercury. D. 500 microns. The correct answer is D. 500 microns. Explanation. The EPA requires that the vacuum pump used for evacuating refrigeration systems be capable of pulling a vacuum down to at least 500 microns. This level ensures that moisture and non-condensable gases are properly removed from the system before it is recharged with refrigerant. 1 micron equals 1/1000th of a millimeter of mercury, millimeters of mercury, so this is a much deeper vacuum than 10 or 20 millimeters of mercury. Tip: use a micron gauge to measure deep vacuums accurately. Standard compound gauges are not precise enough at this low pressure level. Question 5. Although R410A is a high-pressure refrigerant, under what condition can it be stored in a service vehicle? A. The temperature inside the vehicle does not exceed 155 degrees Fahrenheit, but R22 can be stored in vehicles with temperatures exceeding 155 degrees Fahrenheit. B. The temperature inside the vehicle does not exceed 125 degrees Fahrenheit, but R22 can be stored in vehicles with temperatures exceeding 125 degrees Fahrenheit. C. The temperature inside the vehicle does not exceed 125 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the same guidance given for R22 and other common refrigerants. D. The temperature inside the vehicle does not exceed 155 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the same guidance given for R22 and other common refrigerants. The correct answer is C. The temperature inside the vehicle does not exceed 125 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the same guidance given for R22 and other common refrigerants. Explanation. Refrigerant cylinders, including those containing R410A, must be stored in areas where the temperature does not exceed 125 degrees Fahrenheit. This limit is critical to prevent overpressurization, which can lead to cylinder rupture. This temperature threshold also applies to R22 and most other common refrigerants. Always store cylinders in a well-ventilated and shaded area when possible. Tip: avoid leaving refrigerant tanks in hot enclosed vehicles. Use thermal covers or ventilation if needed. Question 6. What happens to the motor winding of a hermetic compressor if it is energized during a deep vacuum? A. Will overheat only if the crankcase heater is energized. B. Will be protected by its insulation. C. Must be kept warm to operate properly. D. Will be damaged if energized. The correct answer is D. Will be damaged if energized. Explanation. When a hermetic compressor is under a deep vacuum, there is very little refrigerant or pressure inside the system to carry heat away from the motor. If the compressor is energized in this state, the motor windings can overheat and become damaged due to the lack of cooling. This is why it's critical to avoid turning on a hermetic compressor during evacuation. Tip: always make sure the system is properly charged or pressure equalized before energizing the compressor. Question 7. Which of the following statements is not true about recycling and recovery equipment made after November 15, 1993? A. It must have an oil separator. B. It must be tested by an EPA approved third party. C. It must meet vacuum standards more stringent than those met by equipment manufactured before November 15, 1993. D. It must be equipped with low-loss fittings. The correct answer is A. It must have an oil separator. Explanation. EPA regulations for recovery and recycling equipment manufactured after November 15, 1993 require that the equipment be tested by an EPA-approved third party such as AHRI or UL. It must meet more stringent vacuum levels than equipment made before that date, and it must include low-loss fittings to minimize refrigerant emissions during hose disconnection. However, the EPA does not require an oil separator to be part of all certified recovery or recycling units. While some equipment may include an oil separator, it is not a mandated feature under the certification standards for post-1993 recovery equipment. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for updated videos every week.